All right, so let me go back to sharing again. Sorry. All right, that's my cue. All right, so let's talk a little bit about WordPress news and events for the month. Again, summertime, things are a little bit slow, but they're starting to pick up a bit. One thing, Peter sent out this information, or posted this on our Facebook group, and we'll send out a link again to everyone afterwards too. After tonight's presentation, we'll send it out with the link once we post things to our YouTube channel. But if you're not aware, WordPress every year puts out an annual meetup survey to any people who attend WordPress meetups like this. It only takes a few minutes to complete, and really the feedback is very valuable. It's not only valuable for WordPress to know that people are taking part in these meetups. It's also really valuable for Peter and myself. And again, good, bad, or whatever, we definitely would like to hear any constructive criticism, any ideas, suggestions, etc. It also helps in terms of WordPress itself, keeping track of, like I said, people who are engaged with the different meetup groups. So if you don't mind, well, I'll send out a link afterwards. Just take a few minutes to complete it. It's really simple to do. And as I said, some of the results anonymously get shared back with Peter and myself afterwards. Another big thing coming up very soon, this kind of snuck up on me, is the WordCamp US coming up in September, so less than a month away. It's taking place in person. This first one, I'm not sure if last year was in person or not. I don't think it was. No. So this is the first one in person since COVID times, and that's taking place in San Diego, September 9th through the 11th. But the good news for those of us who can't travel to San Diego is it's still going to be live streamed for free. So if you go to search, you can search for WordCamp US 2020, or go to us.wordcamp.org, etc. They've already posted the schedules too of who the speaker is going to be, so you can feel free on the day. They'll be running live streams for the multiple tracks, so that's a great thing. I think it's nice for people who can't travel still. And this is kind of an update to last month. So WordPress 6.1 is another one of these point releases. It's coming out soon. I think originally it was supposed to come out in October-ish is what they were targeting, but it's moved now to November 1st. Sounds like just due to feedback and maybe some testing that's going on. So we don't have a lot of details yet on exactly what's going to be in it, but it sounds like more refinements to the 6.0 release. Obviously, as this one, we learn more details and it gets closer to the release date, we'll certainly probably devote either an entire session to it or half a session or so to talk about what's new in it. So more to come. So November 1st, that one's coming out. I don't have any other news or events. Peter, anything else that you
no, let me check. Of? Yeah, nothing.
Like
obviously, everybody's kind of gearing up for WordCamp, and the fact that they're live streaming it.
Yeah.
The only other thing we could mention is where you can find out about some events. So maybe when I grab the screen, I'll show a couple of
stuff. So meanwhile, that's a good point. Let me stop sharing. So tool or plugin, Spotlight, or anything else you want to share, Peter?
Okay, very good. All righty, let me grab the screen. Just let me know when you see it.
Yep, I can see it. Looks good.
Great. So this is we use this as an example. This is a website that we've been building during our meetups over a number of sessions. The videos are on YouTube. We'll come back to it to finish up. Sometimes, our dog friend and our WP Animal Shelter site will pop up. So one thing I thought I'd show you tonight, I don't think I've shown it before, is something that I use. It's the tool that I use when I need to kind of get an idea of what something's going on, or if a new site's launched and there's different users and all, I want to keep track of something. And that is a plugin, and we'll show you. Here's the WordPress repository. And we could talk, one of the things that happened is they redesigned WordPress.org, which is, we could talk about that later and some of the neat things around that. But under plugins, there's a plugin I use called Simple History. And it's a very simple program. It's a very simple plugin. I've loaded it on our site, and I'll just give you a quick idea of what it does. I'm going to go to plugin since I already loaded it. installed it. And for anybody new, when you go to on WordPress on the back end, you add plugins. You can go to your plugin section in your admin menu, go to add new, and do a search, kind of like what I just did. In this case, I did simple history. And when you go there, now you'll see everything that pops up. You can see that I actually have it loaded. It's nice that your site does communicate back to .org, so you can see, you know, oh, I've loaded it, but I need to activate it. You can also look at all your installed plugins. So the installed plugin here called Simple History, I'm going to activate that. I've previously activated it so that it would have content. But basically what this is doing is it's now recording everything that goes on the site. So something to keep in mind is if you've got a site that has a lot of traffic, a lot of things going on, this will use some resources, and it does save information in your database. You could clear it out easily. So it's not something you want to have running all the time, or if you have a very busy site. I mean, it might be something, you know, it's not going to have a huge impact, but there is some impact. But what's nice about it is now under your dashboard, now there's a new option, a new choice called Simple History. And now what it's going to do is it's going to show me basically everything that's happened, including things like, you know, if somebody's trying to get into your website that they shouldn't be, you'll see that. You'll see, you know, attempted logins. I think there was one here that I saw before, you know, attempted login by someone named Peter. Failed to log in with username Peter. Username does not exist. 27 similar events. But there, you know, this is somebody who is trying to get into the website by, you know, oh, somebody named Peter is on the site and use the name. But this is a neat way to find out if you've got other users, or if you want to know. It's also telling you when it finds, you know, plugins that are outdated or after you updated it. But Simple History, I've got it running on some sites, and it gives me a really good idea of what's going on when I'm just trying to pay attention to some things. And it's kind of some neat insight to, you know, what's happened. There's some settings that you have that would you could search if your database gets large, and under settings, Simple History, you do have some options like, you know, how many items to show, but probably, you know, clearing the log. It'll automatically clear things after 60 days, that type of thing, if you're running it for a while. But Simple History, a quick little tool to easily look at what's happening on your website with the plugins, with the user logins, with people adding content, with people deleting content, just kind of all the activities that happen on your website. I'm curious, Ray, have you ever used that?
I haven't used that one, and so I wrote that down. I'm always learning, Peter, from the things you find. But I've seen similar audit logs built in through either, it might have been iTheme Security or some other security plugins that had something similar. So it comes in handy. Where I've seen it really, especially be useful, is those sites that do have multiple users.
Yes.
So let's say you have content producers, you have some blog writers, et cetera, and then there's always this, well, who did this? I didn't do that, or, you know, or it's saved the bacon a couple of times where I've handed sites off later and someone says, well, this thing isn't working.
Right.
We're able to go back and say, well, it's because you activated a plugin or you turned something else off. So no, this one's awesome. So this one's free, I assume, too, right?
Yes, it is. It's a free plugin. Just kind of runs, and I use it for that exact case that you just described.
Could I ask a question, Peter?
Of course.
You have talked about this in the past, and I did install it on my site. And I think if you remember last month, I told you I had hundreds of failed logins on my site.
Yep.
Well, evidently something happened to my site, and,
Oh, no.
and I couldn't make any changes. So the hosting company actually ran a malware scan and found 2 malware codes on my site, which
Yep.
I have no idea what to do with. And quite frankly, I'm frustrated in that anybody would even want to get into my site. I mean, it's just nothing for them. So if I go into Simple History, will I find when and where they put in this militia code?
So the answer to that is, one, I don't know 100% for sure, because I haven't had that scenario happen with Simple History running. I'm going to guess not, generally because when you do get a malware, it's often coming through a process that isn't necessarily that direct. Somebody logged in and they did something. That does happen. I had malware on a site, and it was because it was shared hosting that was, they had, you know, substandard things in place, and I think it was spreading between things, and my only evidence of that is that it happened in 2 different areas. Yeah, I don't think simple. I can't answer that definitively because it's so specific. I mean, it's again, having things like this is always a help. For something like that, that's where, you know, we can do the 2 hours on security plugins and the scanners and firewall type services and plugins.
There's other, we won't get into too much like logs either. I agree with you, Peter. I wouldn't think it would capture something like malware. I think that would be more, you know, okay, the way that it usually gets injected is either through some other means versus that.
Does
The
that,
other,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Ray.
no, I was gonna say the other thing, if people don't have this installed, if they have a need for this to look back at something previously, you also want to check your hosting too, because some hosts may have at least some kind of basic activity log in terms of, you know, either not necessarily the PHP logs, that's more just gonna be system processes happening. There might be, you might be surprised, there might be at least some kind of logs turned on the hosting side. So check with your host too. Sorry, go ahead, Sue.
I was going to ask if you don't have that plugin installed and then you install it, does it show you backwards history?
No, this is only going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you would go into a log, you know, a log.
Yeah, read the logs.
Exactly.
I was just wondering if the site, I think it was Judith Ann who was talking. Is there a backup of that site that's a few weeks old, or when did you notice the hack?
Yes, there is a backup, but it happened. The backup doesn't go back far enough.
That's one good reason to put a free plugin on your site that backs up your site and take it off the server.
It isn't a plugin. They sent me the 2 links of where it is.
Okay.
There's what about Security? What do you think? Security is you can either buy the service, which I think costs $300 a year.
Yeah.
But doesn't Security have a free version?
It does. I have moved over to PatchStack for like $1 or $2. And I was lucky I got on an AppSumo lifetime deal of a certain level, but I've added where they actually do site recovery for a ridiculously small amount of money.
Oh, you should put that up.
Insurance. Yeah, I'll do that.
Put that on the screen. That's a good one.
Yeah, PatchStack is they had a different name when it first came out. But this sits there's a plugin on your website, on your WordPress site, but a lot of the work is happening outside of your site and before things even get to your site. So firewall setting up and things like that. But PatchStack is something that I use. Now, I've also done some things, and when I got hit, and it was a tedious process, but I was able to go in and find the files that had malware, remove the files, and the biggest trick is trying to figure out if you can get rid of the things that are then reseeding everything. And it's like even asking the host to say, you know, turn off all processes. I just want to go in and clean these files up. And I've found some interesting scanners. I'm going to do this over on the site here to see if I can find the tools that I've used in the past for scanning. And actually finding malware that says, oh, this file has injected code. This file has injected code. And Judith Ann, do you know what was the malware? Do you know, or what is the malware? And is it still on your site?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you what it is.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh my gosh, Peter, it's very, very long.
Okay,
Yeah, but it it goes all the way through home and my name and the number and public HTML dash. Then it has a DB backups, and then
Okay.
it has a code, and then there's a date, 2018 702, and then a hex, and then it says unofficial found, which none of this means anything to me.
yeah,
Sometimes the
So-
malware shows up, like the one I've seen most recently was like an SEO kind of malware. So the site itself had a bunch of garbage in there, like Rolex
Yes.
watches and all that junk kind of on the
Yes.
back end. So that was the thing that you would see. But what the tough part was, you could never really, we never really found it inside the database. So we were searching for all that. It was just, again, files. That's the crazy things, files elsewhere on the file system that were injecting that kind of stuff in. So
yeah,
I spoke to them because I couldn't even get into my cPanel, but that had nothing to do with the malware. It was the fact that when they sent out my two-factor code,
yeah.
it took AT&T 2 days to deliver that
Oh, no.
two-factor code to me.
Yikes.
So,
So you got two-factor in place, yeah, so if you're comfortable, can you, I'm curious your hosting company.
in Emotion,
Well, yeah, I have not used them, but they're considered, I know people who speak very highly of them, but I've not used them directly. And again, I hate to say it, but you get what you pay for, and I have some very inexpensive hosting that I've used, and I'm not sure where you are in the scale, but that sometimes enters into it when it's like, you go do a reverse IP address, a reverse lookup on your IP and find out that there are 100,000 websites sharing your server.
One of the
happen.
things you have to make a choice on, and it's painful.
Yeah.
But if that's a mission critical site, if you really care about it, you've got to have excellent backup in addition to whatever the hosting company does.
Right.
And like weekly backup that's sent automatically in the middle of the night to your Google Docs or wherever you got room for it. And the other thing is you may have to pay for decent security plugins.
Yeah.
And that's a painful decision, but if it's an important site, you should think about it. Now you can, I think security is $300 a year, but if anything goes wrong with your site, they fix it. They'll fix what's wrong with it now. And I think that money covers the next upcoming year. And that's one option. I don't know patch stock. If they're good, they look a little cheaper.
Yeah.
I have to tell you though, that InMotion was on the phone with me for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Their support was excellent. It's just that what they gave me meant nothing to me. And quite frankly, I wasn't even sure I wanted to keep my site up and going anymore.
Did
Yeah.
you ask InMotion tech support if they could fix your site, or did they say they don't do that?
No, I did not, because it took them a while to run it. So it was like the next day I got the results, and I'm so frustrated with it.
Well, I'll
I'm
tell you what,
frustrated.
if you want to, offline, because and send me even, what those files are, I can at least get an idea, what they've sent you. Only because I know I've been through it. Ray, did you say you've been through?
yeah, it never, to be honest, mine never really got solved successfully. I was working for a
Yeah.
client. They had to go and pay somebody. That was their thing. Eventually they paid. It was, I forget the name of it. What was it, Malwarebytes or something like that? They ended up paying them to go and
Yeah.
clean it up, which was cheaper than paying me to tell them to go call Malwarebytes. So
Yeah,
Malwarebytes is good. That's a good one.
there's literally a guy who gets recommended. I'd have to look it up, as he's a guy that you pay him money and he goes and does it all. This is the thing he does. It's this one guy who ends up being known for repairing websites and all, because it can be very, very tedious. Sometimes you get lucky and you find out that, oh, okay, in my includes file in here, here's the thing that's injecting into the header. And that's what normally happens. What normally happens is there's something that is putting code into the header file. So your WordPress site has traditional WordPress, right? So we also have the kind of the new kind of WordPress, but it's similar in that there are pieces that kind of get glued together to then ultimately output page content. And your header information is sitting in its own file. And usually what's happening is the code is being injected into the header file, and then it's doing something. And very often it's something like these SEO scams where when somebody goes, I had one, you didn't even know anything was going on until all of a sudden Google was saying, hey, you're indexing all of these sites, these bad links. And you look and go, no, I'm not. And you go to the site, you don't even see anything until then you look in all the things you need to look in to see and realize there's code and it's pinging all these other websites, that are not anything to do with what you're doing. It's usually selling vitamins or, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So in cleaning it up, it's sometimes you get lucky in that you find the file or few files that are doing the code injection. The hard part is trying to make it not, regenerate.
Maybe just for the sake of, like I said, Judith, if you don't mind, contact Peter offline. We can, hopefully Peter can do that. But just a quick wrap up on that though, because you did throw out a good suggestion, which I don't think we've covered much. Maybe we covered a long time ago, but just a recommendation for people is like Google Search Console. Make sure that you submit your site to Google Search Console, because at least you'll get a notification back from them. Again, it might be too late. Whether or not they've found some malware. Just again, Google has its bots and spiders and things crawling. So that's take a look at that. So Google, it's free, so you can submit your site to Google Search Console, and that they'll notify you later if they found any malware. So sometimes it's too late at that point. Better, but again, better late than never to know about it.
Yeah, the ones that come up most are for the plugins that'll help you is Word, and they're the top. They're going to be the top results. WordFence. All-in-one, iTheme security. I haven't used Jetpack. I have used this as a plugin, and I have to remember, and Judith Ann, this might be something to try, is literally trying. There's a couple that will try to scan what you've got and clean up what you have through the WordPress dashboard.
Peter, I've used Clean Talk.
Yeah.
You need to know what you're doing with Clean Talk.
Yeah.
It's inexpensive. We bought it on the enterprise level for its security on email from Gravity Forms. I mean, it just killed spam on Gravity Forms. It's great.
Yeah.
But then they came out with Zero Spam, which is free. But when we got into their firewall stuff, that's very strict.
Yeah.
And you may need a little. They'll show you videos, they'll talk to you, but they're not US based. And their initial language is not English.
Got it.
So there are some communication issues with them.
Yeah.
They run a tight product. Boy, if I had a mission critical site that was earning money, I would consider something like that.
Yeah. I'll have to go back through my previous issues with this and come up with kind of the what is something that can scan on your own site to at least give you some ideas here. But yeah, it's tough. It is very hard, but yeah, Judith Ann, if you want to send me some, we'll get in contact a little bit later, and I'll see if there's any clues hidden in there.
Awesome.
All right. Want me to give you back the screen?
Yeah, I can give back screen. I don't have anything to share yet, but so so this is tonight. June was the first one, whether you knew it or not, but this is tonight. So questions that you have, topics, things you're interested in. We're always happy to look at sites live too. Again, we'll be, we'll be nice. We'll pick on things.
Yep.
Jean's got her hand raised. So yeah, either raise your hand if you want. I'll call on you, or put it into the chat window and again, we'll see where we go from here. So Jean, what's up?
Okay, I have a question. I've been having difficulties with these custom fields for like months now, and I got the plugin. How do I get the fields to show up on a page?
Yes.
Do I need to have something special that's stackable? The only thing I could find, like watching, I must have watched 24
I'll
YouTube
throw out,
videos.
I'll throw something out first. So we actually covered this a bit. If you want to go back a little, we'll still answer here, but if you want to go back in our Let's Build a Site Together series, I think at one point. So hold on, let me bring up.
Okay, I have looked at this stuff, but I couldn't find like any indexing or where it was, which episode to watch.
Yeah, so it
that's cool.
was.
Yeah.
Let me show you where it is on the site. Just I'll have to figure out, or Peter, maybe you can find out which episode we did. But
Yeah.
basically what we did on our demo site is, excuse me, we created this adopt this thing.
Uh-huh.
So this is the list of adoptable pets, and each one of these behind the scenes is actually a custom post type with custom fields. So this is the custom post type. You can see it's a type called pets. And then this is an individual one that we added. So yeah, that's the thing about typically, so you have, so typically, and I'm sorry, yours was, so if you're using custom fields a little bit different. If you're using custom post types, then yes, custom post type UI, which you may have used to
Yeah, I have both. I have the
so that's the beginning of it. That lets you create them. Now the problem is displaying them on the front end, and that's where things get a little bit tricky depending on what theme you're using or how comfortable you are doing your own coding. So basically, if you think about it, every one of these, because it's a custom post type, by default, it will default to the post type template within WordPress, which is probably not how you want these things to display. So you probably want some customization of what that looks like. We're on this, the demo site that we're using the Cadence theme, which is a free theme. If you go back to our Let's Build a Site Together series, you can see why we used it, how we used it to build the site. One of the nice things about Cadence is the free version of Cadence has some components that really work well with custom post types and custom fields. Custom fields actually, I don't think it has anything specific for that. The paid version does, but the free one basically lets you create a template page. And there's some free ones out of the box of styling what a custom post type looks like. So
is that full site editing, or is that back to Classic, which I had no idea at all about Classic?
It's a block. It's still the block editor. So behind the scenes, you're using the Gutenberg,
okay.
the drag and drop block editor. You're not using full site editing, the new stuff in WordPress. Cadence has its own layout tools that you can set up headers and footers and all that. But this piece here isn't anything to do with full site editing. This is just you're using within Cadence. You're creating you're editing a custom post type.
Could you show on the screen what your template looks like that calls in the custom fields?
Yep, that's a good one. So behind the scenes, and again, if you in that YouTube video, we walked through it step by step, but basically what we did was we created a custom post type called pets. And again, for people who haven't seen this before, I'll do a real quick summary of what a custom post type is. So by default, WordPress has two main types of things it works with, posts or pages. So by default, if you've installed WordPress, you have something in here for posts. These are usually blog posts, or pages, which are usually your static pages. Well, WordPress, one of the powers of WordPress is that you can create this thing called custom post types, which can be anything. It could be recipes, authors, pets, whatever you want it to be. So in our demo site, we created our animal shelter demo, we created pets. So using custom post type UI, let me just show this real quick. We've created a new thing in here, which is our pets post type. So in this pets type, we said it's just basically, we didn't do anything special to it. We said it acts like a regular post. And then we later added fields to it. So if I show you one of these pets, let me look at one of them, like Avis, for example. So the UI portion of it looks just like a regular old blog page. But what we did is we've added custom fields. We've assigned custom fields to it. Things like, the breed, the age.
Yes. How did you get that The part that's in the blue box.
which up here,
Yeah.
this is actually what do we call this? It's a group. This is just using, it's basically a table. We've inserted a table in here, but the table, and this is our quick and dirty. This
This is our quick and dirty.
I
Exactly.
would not say this is necessarily best practice, but to show how you can do this. Because now the other problem is, let me just back up for people. Hopefully that people aren't lost. But these things, so this is a custom post type, the pet, that's, it's not a blog post or a page. Inside of that custom post type, we said, well, we want some custom fields there to make the back end easier for people to input these pets. We want people to put in the breed, the age, et cetera, et cetera. These things are actually custom fields. That's another plugin. Let me just show that real quick for people. So again, this is all covered in that YouTube video that we did. So custom fields is under here. So we created a field group called pet details. And in here is where you can see all the things. So a pet has, a breed, an age, a color, et cetera, all these different things.
Yep.
So-
I got all that. I got that.
Okay.
And I got the other thing. It's just that when I filled in the information and I went to display the page, it just said,
Yeah, so custom
Announcements,
fields. So
and none of the
custom
fields
fields
showed
are-
up.
Ray,
Yeah.
the thing she's missing and looking for is if you go back to that screen that had the
Yeah,
editing, is
Is this.
that piece of code
right.
Short
So
code.
and where they come from.
yeah, so
Yeah.
if you look at ACF, Advanced Custom Fields, they actually give you some good documentation on how to display a custom field. One way to display a custom field is using a short code. So the
Uh-huh.
short code is, you just say, and this is by Advanced Custom Fields, that specific plugin, you say ACF field equals, and then it's field name. So back in the, I don't know if I can open this up twice. So back here, let me see if I can get this open. When we were creating that field group in Advanced Custom Fields, we named every one of those fields. So you have to refer to that name. So for example, this loads quickly.
Yeah, I did that too.
Yep.
So I have
breed, age.
ACF equals, and then I'll have
Yep.
public
ACF.
notice or
So this is-
community.
So
Yeah,
this
sorry.
will display, what's a little goofy here is if you look, like the values are actually in the input. The display of it we're displaying up here in the content section. So it's a little bit of, it's a little, probably not necessarily the greatest way to do it. The more advanced way to do this is you would actually have to, again, you can do it through PHP, or depending on your theme may actually let you reference and pull data directly from custom fields. So I don't know if I have it up here or not, Peter. Let me show this real quick. This
Can
is-
we look at her site? Can you put your site into the chat so we can take a look and see what it looks like?
It's not live, it's local, but
Yeah.
I'll share it if you
Well,
want.
let me show you
have
just real
TV
quick.
access.
This is a pro version of Cadence, and in this pro version, I have something else in here called board members. So the board members one, the thing that's a little bit different about this is the way that this is pulling in data is, I'll pick on myself, is it's pulling data from it's pulling data. I don't know if I can see it in here or not. It's actually being assigned from Cadence itself. You can assign custom fields to a field. Like this is an image field, for example. I'm able to assign a custom field value into that. So again, depending on the theme that you're using, which theme are you using?
2022.
Yeah, 2022 is really bare bones. So that you're gonna have to probably do something like this. You're gonna have to do ACF field equals.
Yeah, I do have that. I have ACF field. I have ACF space field equals quotes, and inside the quotes, inside the brackets, I have the name.
What is
The
it? What
name
is it? What is it displaying for you? Nothing.
Nothing. It gives the headline, the page. It doesn't
What
even
kind of
give me the
fields?
page title.
What kind of so if you're doing this in 2020, are you doing it in a text?
2022.
2022, I'm sorry. Are you where are you putting this value into? Are you putting it into a text field?
On the custom field page where
Well,
you
this
put, where you made,
shortcode,
where I
right?
made the group, yes. And then I'll just say the short code and I'll give it the name. because it didn't give me like, here is the short code. So I just used what the title, or like what the field name was.
Yeah, but are you putting it in this format though? Are you saying
Uh-huh.
square brackets, ACF
Yep.
field equals whatever? I would just say, make sure that wherever you're putting this into, like we happen to be putting this in a table, but it doesn't have to be in a table. So just for example, I'll show this up here. You know, you can put this in a text field as well. And if I update this, let me just save it. And which guy is this again? I forget which. It is Avis. So if we look at Avis over here, you can see it is, the thing is, you have to make sure that you're putting it into, you're also not doing it in the visual editor part of a text field. You know, you should do it in the actual text portion. Oh, this one really doesn't matter because this is actually, this is a text field you're putting it into. Yeah, I think it really would help to be able to see
Yeah.
that page.
The challenge here too is Gina, you're using, if you're using 2022, and I think you said you're using full site editing. So now you're in a little bit of a different area because of the full site editing, which then using the new data blocks that work with full site editing templates. I've not done it yet. So
Yeah, you're right. I missed that part entirely. If you're trying to get it displayed within a template as part of full site editing, that may be the real problem. Is the template isn't just matching to your custom post type.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I thought you had to do. I thought you had to set up the fields, set up and then, and everything that you've shown so far is what I did. And then I thought you made a template page for it.
I hate to say that if you're not married to the 2022 theme, I would try Cadence instead. Your life is just gonna be so much easier than, and this is just my personal opinion for folks out there. What Gene is talking about is you probably know, when you first install WordPress, you get some of these, and I'll share my screen again. You get these default themes that come with WordPress. So for example, I'll get out of this guy. So in appearance themes, WordPress comes with the WordPress theme of like 2020. This is what she's talking about. So 2022, I'm sorry, this is the new one, or 2021. In my opinion, again, and it depends. If you're just creating a blog, for example, this will work fine. This will work fine for most people's blogs. I think once you get beyond a pretty simple blog, in my opinion, these are more reference themes and not something I would necessarily encourage somebody to build a full site off of. I would say if you want to build something like a real site or something a little bit more complicated than a blog, I would start looking for some of them. Astra is one that Peter had recommended before. I haven't used Astra. Cadence is the one that we use to build out our animal shelter site. I just think your life is going to be a lot easier for using that.
Yeah, everything that I've learned about WordPress is from like these meetups.
okay.
I think I've already explained before that, I've always hand coded everything. So I'm trying to learn WordPress because people are saying I'm in the ancient world with this other stuff. So that is what almost every meetup shows. They start with 2022. And then they'll show how to,
full site editing is simply not ready for prime time.
Yeah.
And if you're building this locally, create another site and put a Cadence theme on it or an Astra theme. They're both good. Cadence has some free extra blocks that you can use, and learn how to use the block editor and try and rebuild the site with that. I hope you're not too far into it, but if you see that it's working, if you can just get one custom post to display something, then that's the issue. It's more than likely the issue.
Yeah.
okay, because I didn't know if there was some paid or pro plugin you have to use, because one of the things that I followed along was with Jamie Marsh said. Jamie, somebody from,
Jamie Marsland, he's great. He's great.
And I just went along and I did everything he said, and it was great. And everything like agreed with what you taught me last month and the month before that.
Yeah.
And then it came up, and then he's talking about Stackable. And so I downloaded Stackable, and he has Stackable Pro.
Yeah.
And I'm just learning. I'm not going to be paying. I don't want to pay for stuff oh, let's try this plugin and pay. Let's try this plugin and pay. And I don't have a client that's paying me to do this. I just wanted to learn.
And I will say that you're jumping into something. I want to say it's advanced, Gene, but I will say you're jumping into something that's more, I'd say, medium difficulty. So advanced custom fields and custom post types, getting them together to display. Yeah, it's a little tricky, and that's what I'm saying. I think, yes, you could, use full site. You could use full site editor, create your own templates and all that. For somebody who's just starting out, you'll be much easier, much better off going back and using Cadence to do that. So yeah, take a look at our series. It's, again, let's build a site together. I don't know what episode it was. I'll try to find what episode number that was.
Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch that and watch in 1.5 speed. So you can,
Yeah.
but I think we showed
I
you
have
step
watched
by
some of your
step.
past ones. Maybe I just didn't get the right one. So thank you. I didn't mean to
Yeah.
take up all this
No,
time.
no,
That's
I thought
okay.
you give me a quick answer and say like, oh yeah, you need the pro version to show that. Or
Yeah,
something, you know?
no. I'll tell you, I think we'll soapbox for just a little bit more. I do it pretty much everyone. The full site editing push and making 2022 the default theme, in my opinion, and I've always been pro everything, I think it was a big mistake because it has new folks going in there and immediately jumping into something that, as Sue said, is not ready and is far more difficult initially because it's such a kind of cryptic environment. So one of the first things I would, we recommend Cadence, Astra, and the other one I recommend is GeneratePress. All three of those are great starting points. And then you have the Cadence blocks, and then you have Generate Blocks, which is another free plugin. And Generate Blocks does a lot with dynamic stuff in the free version in terms of the query loop, which is calling up even a custom post type and put my image and all my details. It's when you get into then the template for that particular custom post type where it gets a little bit complicated, and very often there is a pro level tool needed for that if you're not coding that yourself. And yeah, if you're a coder, you can go and code a PHP template that pulls in all of your custom post fields. I don't code. I'm a builder. I take all the pieces and put them together, and anytime I use code, it's code snippets using a code snippet plugin, that type of thing. But yeah, it's difficult for the reason that you said, right? You go in there and you're going to look and go through tutorials, and they're all talking about a certain way to do something that then you're going to say, great, now I want to make it look nice, and go, well, that's really hard to do right now. So
okay, so Gene, yeah, so go back and Peter put a link to the one that specifically covers that. Just so from a question standpoint, I'll go to Joanne first, and then we'll go to Jamie next. So Joanne, you're up.
Hi, everybody. This is my first time.
welcome.
And it happens to be the last session. But
Not last
anyway.
session ever, last session of these summer things.
Yeah, last of these open, let's just have a conversation sessions.
Right.
Although we'll probably do it again because we like them.
So do you do Zoom meetings throughout the year as well?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, every month.
Okay, good. I look forward to them.
Good.
I started teaching myself WordPress 7 years ago, just because I was out of work and I needed to, keep myself busy.
Yeah.
And built a couple of basic sites. One was a local event calendar, because the town that I had moved into really is a very small town, and I couldn't find anything without going into Facebook and multiple sites. So I just sort of pulled everything into one site to have a one main event calendar. And I just maintained it, out of the goodness of my heart. Recently, I have my employment has ended, and I decided that I don't want to work for anyone ever again.
Like many of us.
So I want to monetize the site. And in my plan to monetize the site is to add a directory service to it. For the events are posted for free, but the directory services will be a tiered approach. But, and I was really bogged down by the fact that I was trying to reverse engineer what I had done 7 years ago
Mm.
on a very simple free theme. And then, I started researching directory service themes.
Yeah.
And I think so I'm here to ask if anyone has experience with directory service themes. And the two that I've found,
Can I ask you, so Joanne, before you can get into that, just I'm trying to still understand a little bit about the requirements. So you want to have people be able to submit their events to the site,
yes.
and how does the directory? So what's the directory part of it? I guess I'm missing the link between those.
Oh, no, so I'll have I'll have a page with an event calendar,
Yeah.
and then I have the directory services,
What's the directory of, like, why would?
local businesses.
Okay.
So people come into town and they want to find a carpenter.
I can show you. Give me a second. Let me show you. I think it was designed a second ago. And this may not be exactly what you're looking for, but this plugin can basically do similar to what you're looking for. Can you see on my screen?
I
Yep.
can.
So this is again, I'm a member. This is the Newington, Connecticut Chamber of Commerce, and I'm on it, but also do their website. So on our website, we have something similar, a directory service. So for example, you can go find a business.
Mhm.
This will show, again, you can sort it by real estate, people, you think about just members of a local chamber of commerce. People, to get added to this, they have to join our chamber, do a whole membership thing. It's a whole side piece. But this plugin actually does have a piece to it, I believe, where people can submit their own, submit their own listings, and then they would get approved. And I believe there might even be a payment part to it as well too. It has all this different styling stuff. So there's a plugin that we're using behind the scenes for this called Connections. Let me double check the exact name of it again. So Connections is that part, and it has a bunch of extra, here we go, Connections Business Directory. I think we can even see, here we go. So there's a free version, which doesn't do a lot, to be honest. This is another one of those, you pay what you get what you pay for. If you want all the fancier stuff I just showed, you want to get the paid version. It's really good too. I mean, the developer is very responsive, because I had some questions about it. It's a one-man kind of shop, but I happened to find this one too, because I saw other local chambers of commerce seem to be using it as well. So even though I'm using it, or we're using it for businesses for Chamber of Commerce, they have examples here of people who are using it for just other, kind of other directories. I think you can even use it for people in an organization or something like that as well.
Ray, is that one set up to take payments?
I think it is. I think they're the free
Because
version.
we use one, I'm going to put it into the chat. We've used it on a couple of sites, and it's got a lot of features, and it's got a free version in the repository, but the paid version just isn't that much. You may not even need the paid version.
Yeah,
but
that might. I
can-
think I might have been looking at that one that you're talking about, Sue.
Yeah,
that one might have been, a little bit more. Was that? Do you know what the name of that one is?
The link I put in for Vital Communities is one of the groups that's using it.
Okay.
And you can see their way of doing it. There's lots of ways to display this, but they are a group in New England trying to get people to shop local, do things local, so everything's local. And you can click on the map and you can find kinds of businesses. You can search by category. Once you do that, you can find the business, you can get in touch with them, see their hours. And this has been a real easy one to implement.
which plugin? I'm looking at the sources. In this.
Salescripts.com / it's called Web Directory 2.
Okay, yeah,
It's got an-
W2DC. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the first link is to the plugin, and the second link is to an example of it.
Yeah.
Of course, it's their colors, their style, their pictures, their everything, but and it's set up to charge people.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And Joanne, the other piece that, sorry, let me share my screen. The other piece to is the events part. So I don't know, like you said, you've created something in the past, but did you create that by hand or did you use a plugin for that?
No, I'm using events calendar.
Perfect. I was gonna say, because events calendar also has, especially like the
Right.
paid version of it
Yeah.
too. Probably can do everything that you want for displaying events.
Let me jump in real quick because I want to make sure that I heard something that Joanne, you started to say. And I think this is for all the folks who are kind of new in just understanding. We're talking themes, we're talking plugins, we're talking WordPress. WordPress says the core, right? That's the thing that makes kind of everything work. That your theme is the easiest way is, well, it's how it looks. But themes can have a lot of functionality built into them, but plugins also add a lot of functionality. And if we go back in time, you're going to find a lot of sites that have a lot of a theme is being sold because it's so functionally focused. It's like, as you were saying, a directory theme. I think we, and when I say we, I'm saying myself, Ray, Sue, our experiences, we want to separate the functional logic of something like a directory from the theme so that we have theme control, and then we're bringing in what is the best plugin for us versus something that's all rolled up into one big package. So just to clarify, based on what you started saying, you were looking at a couple of themes. I myself am very much pick the best theme for what you're doing and pick the best plugins for what you're doing versus trying to pick a theme that does it all, and maybe it does some things really well and some things not so well, and a lot of things you don't ever even need. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get your opinion. Because I'm just in the, reacclimating myself stage. So I'm gonna look at your YouTube channels and I'm sitting here day after day watching tutorials and reading stuff. So that's the stage I'm at now. And like I think both of the themes that I was looking at had drag and drop capability, which I believe Google frowns upon for SEO.
No, that what you're saying is like if A then B, that's not right. If you're looking at a theme like buying one, if it tells you it's using WP Bakery Builder,
Mhm.
that's an older theme. It's got a drag and drop page builder, and stay away from it. If
Yeah.
you listen to Peter and Ray, try Astra or Cadence, and then you can put the free plugin for the directory and you can play with it. And then you can break your site and put it away and try again. Always work on a test site.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you're going to have to come to terms with the block editor. And Peter is absolutely right. Don't buy a theme that says we're a directory, because
Okay.
in 2 years, they're going to abandon it.
Yeah, it's true.
And it won't do anything else, and you'll be up the creek.
Yep.
So use a solid theme that has a future. And one of the things I like about Cadence is that if you go to their YouTube channel, there's a lot of how-to videos that are really well done.
Yep.
So give it a try and, take a test site, play with it.
I will. Thank you.
And often, just to finish this off too, often it's better to spend the money on a better plugin that does what you want, because that can be used across different themes. So again,
Correct.
in the future, you don't want to use Cadence or something else better comes along. You spent the money on the pro plugin. Like Events Calendar is a great example. I think, not to pick on Gene again, but I know Gene at one point, I think last month, the month before, was talking about like writing this whole thing for events. And I'm like, yeah, don't do that. Events Calendar does it. And it's, I know she's laughing, but that's a common thing where people Peter always says, I mean, look at today, there's usually a plugin that can do anything you want for functionality. So as soon as you think I need to create this on my own, stop, go look for the plugin. Yeah, don't look for the themes. I think it'll get you boxed in. So
Okay,
great.
thanks.
Great.
Appreciate it.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Jamie had the question, I
I
believe.
do. So I'm going to drop the link to the website into the chat so
Okay.
everyone can take a look at it. This is for the Arts and Culture Collaborative in Waterbury, Connecticut.
Very good.
And I did talk to my boss, and she couldn't attend today, unfortunately, but I do have a few questions.
I'll bring it up to me. Let me share.
Yeah,
my-
please feel free to bring it up. That would be great. So she has managed to figure out how to change the spotlight section, which is really good. It's what's the word I'm looking for? There's
It's a
an
slider,
old event
right?
in it, but she has figured this out, so we're good there.
Okay.
But some of the questions she had was, some users apparently are unable to access the site from their work computer, but can from their phone or their iPads. Is that something that she has to check in on our back end? Is it something on our end, or is that possible that it's something that they're
Probably something on their side.
Their
When I say
end.
their work computers, again, depending on back in my corporate days, which
Mhm.
I'm free of the corporate yoke, but back then, I couldn't go to YouTube, I couldn't go to all those kind of things. It might be something like that. It might be blacklisted from their site. I wouldn't think something like this.
Right.
It kind of surprised me that a site like this would be blacklisted.
right?
So-
I think she said mentioned going to check their information and see if it was blacklisted, but I figured, well, I'll just ask.
Yeah, and that would explain, like, I had the same thing. So when I'm using my phone, when I used to use my phone at work, for example, my phone wasn't on the corporate network. It was just using my cell service. So that's, that could be something their internal networks may be blocking it.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
And
Peter, you
one,
have to add on that too?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was saying, Peter, did you have another thought on that?
I'm taking a quick look at to see if the domain is on any blacklist right now. So I'll let you know if I find any.
Oh, thank you. We did have a huge issue with malware before this site
Yeah.
was changed. It was really awful. Actually, it was really.
Was it the same, Jamie, was it the same domain name at that time?
I believe so.
That could be, so Peter's
be.
point was a good one too. Yeah, so that could be, it could be flagged at a higher level, saying if that site once was a known malware site. Although usually at this point, I mean, I'm bringing this up just directly, and if you can find it through Google, but yeah, there may be some historical thing there too about that.
Yeah, so I'm finding you're greenlit, you're not on any blacklist. It doesn't mean that some of these businesses don't have their own local database. Because
Right.
I've run into that and they
Mhm.
didn't update it. And now, they're like, oh, you're a malware site. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, we're not. We haven't been for a while. But if they don't update their data,
Right. Okay.
I use a couple of tools. One of the easiest ones is something called MX Toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason MX is your mail record in it's on your domain name services. It says this domain goes to this mail server, so email can get delivered. That's kind of the shorthand of it. And your email can get blacklisted for things like spam, but the MX Toolbox will check for spam. But you can also, when you put in the domain, there's a drop down next to, you'll see this orange button on it, and then you can choose any number of things to look up your domain to see if it comes up. And the second choice down is blacklist check, and it checks dozens of blacklists that you may be on, and
Neat.
you're okay on everything. Yeah.
Neat.
You're saying I'm showing here right now. So, and this is free too. So this MX Toolbox.
It's free. Yeah.
tool.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there? Okay. This is going to be a little confusing for me to try to explain it because
Yep.
I'm, again, not super familiar with it. So let me stumble a little bit through this.
Mhm.
But apparently there is an event that the Arts and Culture Collaborative is holding that people have to register and pay for.
Yep.
the company that helped us redo this website said that there were some barriers to being able to do that. Something about having too many people needing to become a user on the site or something along those lines. Again, very confusing for me, but my Diane is my boss, and she asked, is there a free plugin for people to register and pay for events?
Free.
Not free, but
Not
the one
free.
that you're probably already using can do it, because I think you're using
The events
events
calendar.
calendar. Yeah.
So the events calendar does have
Yeah.
a paid add-on for taking payment.
Okay.
Yeah, so this thing that we're looking at here for like Shakespeare and Litchfield Hills, this is that plugin, that events calendar plugin that Peter was just saying, and you may be using. I didn't see. I don't know if you can tell if it's the free or the pro. It's probably the free one up here. So this is just for people. This is a sneaky way to look at what's on somebody's site. So the events calendar, this is probably the free version.
Mhm.
The events calendar is, Peter saying, the pro version, and it's simply worth it for especially situations like this. They have, I believe there's different types of pro versions. I'm trying to remember which one. So ticketing and RSVPs, this is the one that you probably want. So it lets you use everything you've already created. So this is an additional plugin that you purchase from them. I forget what they're, so $99 for one site for a year. It lets you do, it'll integrate with other e-commerce things. I'm not sure what, Apple Pay, Google Pay, et cetera. And yeah, once you put this in, it'll let you do, and you'd have to, I'm not sure if anyone here has experience with it. I haven't used it necessarily, but it should integrate directly with what you already have in that calendar.
Okay.
Are you a 501c3, 50?
So
Are you a nonprofit?
they are a nonprofit, but we were actually just discussing this because we're under the umbrella of a different organization. So let me just see really quickly what the specifics were, because yeah, it's a okay, let's see.
And the reason Peter's
It's-
asking that too is because they offer, and Sue brought so too, I think
Yeah.
a month or so ago, they offer a discount. Is it discount or free?
Free. I put the
nonprofit?
link at the bottom of the
Yeah.
chat if you want to call it up.
Yeah, because it says, let's see, established in September 2006 under the auspices of the Greater Waterbury Chamber of Commerce Foundation, which is a nonprofit entity. So
You may want to double check that though, because the Chamber of Commerce, at least what I belong to, we're a different, it's a 501(c)(3), something weird. 'Cause
yeah,
it's a trade-
501(c)(3).
It's a trade group. It's not a nonprofit like an animal shelter. So
Right. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll check on that.
Yeah, go to that link. Ray's got it up now, and
yeah,
it'll,
so here
that's
you
the
go. So
requirements.
these are ones that do not qualify, that do not have. Yeah, yours may be one of these. I would just double check, because I think our Chamber of Commerce it falls into one of these weird ones.
Right.
Yeah,
And
here we
if-
go. Commerce or trade. Here it is. Commerce or trade associations without church names.
And then this is just for me because I couldn't recall exactly what everyone had said. So that plugin that we're using for the calendar, the event calendar, is that the pro version? Will that allow users to be able to enter in events on multiple days? I know we were having that
Yes.
issue.
Yeah, that was the reason I purchased it for that other. We have it for that for the chamber thing too. It lets you do recurring events.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, because unfortunately what we're still doing was I was having to go in
Yep.
and delete. It's funny because I couldn't actually edit the original event post from the user. I had to bump it into drafts because otherwise the changes would just never show up on the website. And it was very weird. And so I had to end up kind of removing that post and redoing it individually for each date myself. It wouldn't let me edit the original content from the user.
Yeah. So yeah, the pro version, and this is where things get a little tricky sometimes with paid plugins. I don't know necessarily for events calendar. I don't know if anyone has experience with the ticketing part. I don't know if the ticketing part, if you also need the pro version, or pro is just if this is a separate thing. So what I mean by that is, the events calendar itself, there's a free version you can just get from the WordPress repository. For most people, if you just have simple events and all that, that's all you need, and it's great. It lets you do a lot of the same things that these other versions do. But once you get to a little bit more advanced features like this, then you have to purchase it. So you'd have to look at this or contact them just to see if you just want to get, let's say, the ticketing part of it. I don't know if that includes the pro piece to do the reoccurring events or not as part of it, or that may be another separate purchase, unfortunately.
Yeah, now this is interesting. The event in question, I just kicked it up on the website because I thought, well, I'm just curious.
Which one is it? I can bring it up.
I just sent the link in the chat.
Okay.
The healing nature of art. You can see on the bottom, it says, if you scroll toward the bottom of it, says for ACC members, log into the website and register here. For non-ACC members, pay here, but it brings you to a PayPal page that's broken.
With donate,
Yeah.
So this is going to be fun.
something's not wrong. Yeah, so that needs to be fixed. Well, so you,
what I was going to say is, again, I'm trying to make this into a bigger picture kind of thing too. Is there's always a lot of ways to do the same or similar things. And I'm looking at the events calendar, looking on the free version, there is an RSVP and ticketing that it says includes with free, and then you have advanced. So I have to go back and look at that myself, Ray. I'm not sure with that, but there's so many ways that you can have somebody say, I want to go, and then I want to pay. And sometimes it is a a PayPal link that pops up, and then somebody's sitting there doing something manually at the office going, well, they wanted to go, did we get a PayPal thing? Okay, email, so you can automate things, so there's always so many ways to do similar things. But when you have a nice, clean way of doing something where a ticketing is tied to, a credit card Stripe account that, confirms with them through an automated email, and you get the list of who's going to be attending, that's when it gets really good.
I'm glad we brought up this example though, Jamie, because it is Peter was going on to, it's the devil's in the details sometimes of what you're asking, because this is a great example of an event that's a little bit more complicated than I think first, met my eye, because I'm noticing things in here, like you said. First off, there's a discount if you're a member or non-member. That's interesting. So think about that. So the events calendar has nothing to do with membership stuff. So you'd have to see, is there a way on the events calendar, the ticketing thing? It probably does. I assume there's probably a place to put in a coupon code or something like that, probably. So that's kind of how you would have to handle the discount. Like members would have to have a coupon code versus the other. But then this other piece too is interesting. So early bird pricing. So that, again, you'd have to double check this plugin, and events calendar is pretty good. I'm not sure if they're trial. I think they have trial versions for some of the pro things. So you have to play around and ask them that, say, hey, is there an ability to set early bird pricing? Because this is almost now getting into something a little bit more complicated. It's almost turning into an e-commerce type of solution, which then is its own kind of bigger thing to implement.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to put a quick link in here to say, and we are not commercial. We are not getting any affiliate links or trying to promote. So we talk about Cadence a lot. But what's interesting is how Stellar WP as a company has brought in some of the best and plugins and tools that I recommend, and they're all coming under the same family, which is always a good thing, because that means they're going to be working generally towards some interoperability, and they're known for their customer service. And also, it's just interesting where, another tool I'm using that called Restrict Content Pro is something that says, hey, we have certain levels, we can sell memberships you can see or not see. It's part of this family, the events calendar, Cadence, Give WP for nonprofits, where you can take donations and all of these have free versions and paid versions. LearnDash is a great LMS, learning management system. So it's just kind of interesting that how the tools that I know that I've gravitated towards are all now under the same Stellar WP umbrella. I'm sure they would love to hear me gushing about them, and I know, Sue, you've had good experience with the Cadence people. We know some of them directly. They're on podcasts. They are very approachable and personable, and definitely linked in with the community. So
I think she'd have to drop off, but Judith Ann, too, not to pick on you again, but I know you have experience with like selling to events and doing some of this, but your solution for it was, I believe, is WooCommerce, right?
Yeah, we use WooCommerce. Although it was interesting, we pay for WooCommerce, and then we had to pay for an extra plugin for them so that we could set up early bird scheduling.
Yeah, that's
But I was wondering, would WooCommerce work within Events Calendar?
well, let's take a look.
is there a WooCommerce? So that's the thing about WooCommerce is Peter's looking, some of these, especially the bigger extensions, this kind of going back to even Joanne's earlier topic about, finding a theme. Sometimes, when you find a plugin that really is this like robust plugin, especially the more popular ones like WooCommerce or Gravity Forms, these other ones, the nice thing about them is some of them have been around for so long, have such a large user base. They also have all these extensions and other add-ons to them. So, you can, like I said, you can take something like WooCommerce and use it for all these things that you normally wouldn't think of. So I don't know if there's something in there that ties it to events or not.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So there's something called Woo Tickets,
Oh yeah.
and I think it ties into the events calendar. And that's another thing. So WooCommerce, an e-commerce plugin that then has all these additional add-ons or extensions. And there are multiple extensions doing similar types of things. There's a few ticketing extensions to the WooCommerce plugin, and some may or may not also connect to something else. So I'm looking at Woo Tickets and the events calendar now. I'm just looking at a headline and a couple of lines here, so I'm not sure to what degree. But it can get, trying to find out which kind of magic recipe is going to do what you need to do. WooCommerce is great. I use it, but the one problem you get with WooCommerce is once you start getting into, the extensions that add the functionality that you really want, it can get really expensive really fast.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things like I used with a customer, and they have like these bundled offers and these different things, and those are all add-ons that have an annual subscription rate. So
Yeah, we wanted to have different people receiving the registration for whatever activity it was, and that too was a separate add-on. And it's $29 a year, but
and that's
Yeah,
part of
it does mount up. When we want something specific, it does mount up.
Sometimes you can get them to just the shows again for folks who aren't familiar. So WooCommerce, again, if you're very new to WordPress, that WooCommerce is probably the best known, probably most adopted e-commerce solution built into WordPress. And the nice thing about it, so WooCommerce itself is another one of these. It's a freemium model. So the free version you can get from the WordPress repository. You can add it just for free to your site. Once you start doing things more advanced, I think they do have them in bundles and collections. A lot of plugins do that too. So, let's say you want to do bookings, and here's a good one. So they may tell you, oh, here's all the things, 7 extensions that are in that. Just to your point, Judith, and a lot of times people know, oh, I need this, this, and this. So, sometimes you're cheaper off buying it as an extension. So WooCommerce doesn't really go on sale very often that I've ever seen. Like they know that they're good. So they're like, well,
yeah.
you pay.
Ray, there was an issue with WooCommerce and PayPal this past year. And WooCommerce wanted everybody to go through PayPal through the WooCommerce site directly.
Yeah.
Whereas originally we had PayPal on the side. So I'll tell you, we had a lot of hoops to jump through to get that straightened out and working properly.
Yeah, we payment processors are probably a whole other separate discussion at some point too. With like,
Yeah.
they all.
When it works though, it's great.
Yeah.
I've had mixed. I think I've used Square, Stripe, PayPal, like everything in between, and they all have their quirks to them.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
find Stripe the easiest to work with.
me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, was there anything else on that site, on the Waterbury site? Sorry, I know we kind of went off into the tickets part. Was there anything else you wanted us to look at on that site?
Oh, no, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay,
You're welcome.
great.
Yeah, the nonprofit thing is something to really pay attention to, and there's different organizations out there, and then there's something called TechSoup,
TechSoup, yeah.
yeah, which is a place where you can find a lot of things that are that benefit nonprofit organizations in the tech world, and free and discounts and things like that that you can get. So,
And even TechSoup is one of those where even if you're not, let's say, developing a website for a nonprofit, if you're supporting a nonprofit, friends with somebody at a nonprofit, let them know about these things. Because yeah, TechSoup, I use it for some nonprofits where I volunteer my time for. It's amazing the things you can get there from. You can get hardware. I've never done hardware there, but you can do Microsoft Office discounts, Google Mail discounts, Zoom discounts, everything. A lot of things that nonprofits need to kind of run their organization. So
We use TechSoup for getting QuickBooks online.
yeah, that's
And
a big one.
really, really cheap. And
Wow.
we're a nonprofit. We have the paperwork, but
And this goes back to the trade organization though. It doesn't work for like chambers of commerce, those kind of things. There,
Yeah, interesting. I'll definitely check into it too. I volunteer for some nonprofits as a chapter leader, and having a Zoom discount would be lovely.
Yeah. Oh, Gene, you got your hand raised up again.
Yeah, the last meetup, Peter had some kind of went to a website and it could tell you what WordPress theme was used. Does that work for plugins too?
yes.
Because talking about the directory, going back for Joanne, there was a site that I used to build another site, but it's in the wait a minute, I'll copy the thing again. If you could look at that, I think it has a directory that she might be interested in that I think looks nice.
Okay.
If you could check that out, see if you can help her with that.
Yeah, let me bring that up. That's great. So, Peter, we're using WP Theme Detector. Is that the one?
That's the one. That's the best
Yeah.
one. A lot of the other tools don't catch everything. You're not necessarily going to catch all of the plugins, but let me take a quick look at this one.
I'm bringing it up too, Peter, just so
Okay.
we can watch.
I tried looking at the code, the thousands and thousands of lines of
That's the
code
way
in
to do
the
it,
page,
yeah.
but
I'll show you.
I didn't know what I was looking for.
While this is running, again, the quick and dirty way I typically do it is, on a site, I'll right click someplace, inspect. And you have to, if you look at the sources, this is probably the more advanced. If you look at sources on here, this shows you what's coming down from the server. So I happen to know this is WordPress because WordPress has this kind of structure. So we can see here's the plugins, here's the themes. So this can be hidden sometimes, and that's where I'm curious, like this theme detector, because there are some security plugins that basically won't show you these contents.
That seems scary that anybody can see how your site was built.
Yeah, but
All the easier to
it's not necessarily
break in.
easier. Yeah, it's not necessarily easier to hack. I mean, that's basically what this thing is doing too. So that site you showed us, this is the Milford one. It's using the Aveda theme.
Yeah.
Which again, we could find that out the other way. So this tells you more about it. It came from ThemeForest. There's that thing we kind of mentioned. It's not great. So plugins, sticky side buttons, infinite scroll, contact form 7 using custom post types, WooCommerce, product page builder, so and the events calendar, Yoast, and then redirection. So this piece is probably just custom post types.
Custom post type.
Yeah.
Joanne, is that something like you wanted? Like to have like the directory with the little cards, and then if they wanted more, they would click on the website, read more, view the website, and then you would direct them to the whole website?
This one's probably custom built though, just to throw that out there. This probably works and does the same thing as like what I had shown. Let me just go back to this one again for a second. It's probably doing something very similar to what this thing is doing. Like this, you can also click on this and see the details and mapping and that kind of stuff. And you can style this again. That plugin I had mentioned, that connections one. There's different styling things. There are templates to it. Yeah, this one, I'm assuming, without having looked at the back end, they probably had to actually add each of those in as a post type. Yeah, it's the things to do post type.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the other thing, where I'll look at something like this, and I know there may be a directory plugin, but I end up now just making it myself as a custom post type because I get to put in only the fields that I want, and I
Right.
know, and I get to output them the way that I want. But I have the experience of doing that, which is different than others who, benefit from a plugin that does a lot of that for them. But then again, you may find that it's doing things that either you don't want it to, or you don't need, or it's missing something. So
And
that's
that's
where you start going to another level of deciding that you're going to just make it yourself. But I'm not coding it. I am using tools like advanced custom fields or tool set. Pods is updated. That's a completely free custom post type builder. But there's a learning curve. That is not something, that's something that you're going to practice, and all of a sudden a light bulb will go on and you go, oh, I create my field here, I create my template here, I output the thing, I have a grid set up so that I can get these pages that give me the picture and the title and then the link to the detail.
I think the nice thing about WordPress, especially, I know we have quite a few beginners who always join our calls, is as you get more experience, as you get more advanced building it, the really nice thing about a tool like WordPress is everything, going back to, is it scary that you can see all the plugins? No, it's not, because behind the scenes, there's only so many ways you could really do things in WordPress. I mean, there's a lot of different, ways to do it, but behind the scenes, everything is basically a post or a page. So, the fanciest plugins you see, including WooCommerce, some that look very complicated, behind the scenes, yeah, they're saving things as custom post types or pages. What they're doing though is they're doing a lot of the styling. They're doing a lot of just kind of the grunt work that you can create it yourself, but is it worth your time? I think that always becomes a thing. Is it worth your time versus like the events calendar? Again, why is it so popular? Because, it does this. It has all this beautiful styling to it. It has different list views. It has, all those extensions. So you've got to weigh those costs and benefits. But for something simple, I'll just show another one. I created like this. This is custom post types because this is simple. This is just pictures and names, and so for me, it's like I don't want to buy like a directory plugin just for something that simple, but I did want something for something more complicated, like a business directory.
Yeah, this is basically this website that you're showing right now is pretty much what I'm striving for generally.
Yeah.
It's it's a local website for a seaside community that has fun facts and directory of local businesses. Everyone wants to to support local businesses, and with an event calendar to say support these businesses by attending these events, or we have summer people that come and they don't know anything about the town, and here's a bunch of kids events that you can bring your kids to. That's basically
it's the membership portion of what you're trying to do. I think that's where things get a little bit more complicated. Because that goes back to, if you want to, some of these other directory plugins have things where they can highlight the paid, the paid submissions versus the freed ones. So the paid ones rise to the top, just like in a Google ad or something like that. So that's always, when you start looking at the features thing, the more you throw on it, devil's in the details. You may say, okay, I do need to get something that's more a directory versus, like a simple calendar plugin.
Yeah, as I said, I will have my payment structure will be a tiered structure where you can have a basic listing, or you can have a basic listing with a featured business and featured events and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and by building the business structure and the website structure, I don't want to build any custom forms.
Yeah.
That's, if I feel like I need to do that later, I'll do it. But right now I'm just trying to build, the structure of the site.
Yeah. And you have the option too, of when you go into something like this, deciding how much you need to automate right out of the gate. So an option is that you just do certain things manually at this point. Hey, here's my fee and here's a payment gateway. And then once I see it, you send me the information, we'll post it for you, which a lot of places will probably prefer anyway. But that's yet another thing as you ramp up something like that. It doesn't mean you have to have the final, the final right out of the gate. Sometimes, a manual process that also you kind of shake out, the how should it work and what are people actually asking for, and now you're ready to automate. So I know that sometimes is a way that I go too, where I don't necessarily automate fully until
you need to. Yeah,
you need to.
that's such there's a lot of wisdom to that statement. There really is. Like I said, I've worked with some clients before who they want to jump into e-commerce. But I'm like, have you ever sold ever sold a product before? I think I told the story before. They're like, they've never shipped a product before, but they wanted a website that does all this stuff. Like, how are you going to pack these things? What are you going to do if an order comes in from California? How do you pay sales tax? They're like, and it just,
Yeah, I've also, written that into my plan where a lot of people, don't even have websites. They're just not web savvy.
Right.
They get their information from Facebook.
Yeah.
But every time I publish the link to my calendar, they're like, wow, I didn't know this existed. And,
Which does bring up, though, again, one of the, this is the thing too about the love-hate relationship we have with Facebook and social media. The thing about Facebook, though, posting things on there, it can be shared to thousands of people, including people who will never go to your website. So you've got to balance that too, that it's nice to have these, and I kind of, with these, again, Chamber of Commerce, I'll take my hat off for a minute. These business directories, they're nice to have, but to be honest, a lot of people, they're just going to go to Facebook and search for plumber near me. They're not going to go to the Chamber of Commerce site and look for a plumber. Some people will because they want to do business with local businesses, but there's that trade-off of you got to do it all. I mean, that everybody on here is doing a business or marketing. Like, you can't rely on just one thing. You got to be everywhere.
No, and so, I mean, I'll have the business directory, the 4 carpenters who've, listed on my site, local carpenters, and then they'll go on Facebook and say, hey, does anybody have any, what are your thoughts on these 4 people?
Yeah.
Well,
you may have to promote them. That may be part of your value proposition is you're going to do some promotion for them on these different Facebook groups that you're a member of, like the local one or something. Say, hey, I run an events calendar. Is it okay if I can post what's coming up every week? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do that a lot now with my events.
Yeah.
And that drives traffic to my site. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. Jerry has her hand up. Hello.
Hey,
Okay.
Sherry, you're on.
Here. Hello there, I'm on.
Hey,
When we missed last month, I had a question on my pictures not showing up sometimes when I go to my site. And Peter
Yes.
said it's because they're on a server, that I had 2 photo services on my site.
so your images are on a CDN. I can't remember which one it was. I could take a quick look. So
Jetpack.
a content delivery network.
Okay,
So the problem was the CDN was not dishing up the photos. Your photos were on your site. Your photos were available depending on when you happen to refresh the page or,
right.
what day it was. But something was glitching on the CDN. I don't use a CDN for local sites. I've found, and I know I don't even know there's a debate. I might be in the minority, and Ray, you please chime in on this too, but the idea of a content delivery network that is meant to have your content spread onto different servers, especially if you're a nationwide organization, and now your content's closer to people literally physically by the way the wires work. But then you have an extra variable in there, and in your case, you ran into an issue where you'd go and look at something, and it's like, well, it's in my media library, but I go to my page and it's not there, and it's like because the CDN, the content delivery network that it's connected to, says, oh, here's the image, but don't get it from our site, get it from where we're hosting it. Ultimately, it's like if you find that was a glitch, you're probably fine. If it's consistent, I would
Turn off the CDN.
turn off the CDN. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause like Peter said, I mean, think about like YouTube, for example. YouTube is just served by CDNs or content delivery networks because all of us are in different states and different cities. So the CDN will have a server closer to your location. That's what a CDN really does. But yeah, for a site where if your readership is primarily, and again, your readership, but if your readership of your blog is primarily Connecticut focused, then there's really no point in necessarily having a CDN. CDN is more, like you said, distributing it. But what CDN throws into like the mix, as Peter was saying, is like complication and caching too. That always drove me nuts. I used to have Cloudflare on a couple of my sites. I turned it off because it's one of those, again, is it a best practice? For certain sites, it can be. For like my own personal site, I don't care. It's just something I always kind of forgot. I'm like, oh, I've got to go refresh my cache on Cloudflare, then refresh at my local site. So
I found it just far too much pain for far too little gain. And in fact, some of my stuff was getting, when I was experimenting with Cloudflare, the stuff was coming up much slower.
it can, yeah, because depending where that server is, a server
Right.
could be, again, think about it from a hosting standpoint. Let's say if you're on whatever hosting company, their hosting servers may actually be closer geographically to you than the
That's right.
CDN servers, so.
So then how do I change it?
If you're using, was it through Jetpack that you're using, Sherry? Is that how it?
When we set up our website, we went to, I don't even remember what the site was on the internet, and followed the directions. And one of the things was to use Jetpack. So we did download Jetpack. But then during one of our meetups, we changed the service that we were using to compress our pictures.
Oh, you know what it might be? I'm looking at your
Short pixel.
I'll bring up your site too. Your site's a great site. For people who aren't familiar with their site, we see Gardening with the Mad. Excellent site.
So here's how to find Ray, you want to bring that up, and I'm going to look at something behind, and we could show everybody something if you get a chance. Okay.
Yep.
So you are. I did a right click on one of the images and said open in the new tab.
Oh, okay.
And then you can get the full address. So if you right click on that.
It's WordPress, right? It's
WordPress.
Jetpack. Yeah.
That's an image that we got from Bugwood, which are free images when we don't have something.
Yeah.
They have a lot of nature, gardening, invasive images that we use.
Yeah, so this part, you can tell this is the content delivery network is serving it from this server. So it's so this is WordPress. So that's the thing with Jetpack for people who don't know. So Jetpack is one of those tools that, again, it usually shows up as one of the most popular plugins if you're searching for adding plugins to your page. It's a Swiss Army knife plugin, which, go back to hear our opinions on that for previous recordings, but I'm not crazy about Swiss Army knife plugins. I'd rather have something more, focused. So one of the things it does have is image compression and the ability to use a content delivery network, which I believe is like the WordPress.com content delivery servers. So yeah, I think I haven't used Jetpack in quite a while, so I don't know. Do you know, Peter, is it just turning off a setting basically, and then it'll serve them locally?
So Sherry, a while ago, you gave me access to your site, and right now I'm I'm looking on the back end. I'm not going to necessarily share it. I'm looking for the right setting right now, but it is, and I can't, it even had a name. The name of their image delivery was something very specific. And I'm just looking for that. And I'm sure it's going to be just literally the way things work in the Jetpack plugin is it's usually a click on or click off. And I'm hoping I can just click it off or tell you where you can click it off. But I'm not finding it yet. But and without slowing everybody else down, and if this is Jetpack is a great example of it's a plugin that came from the WordPress folks that has, as you described it, the Swiss Army knife. A lot of people don't like it because of the bloat. You can just decide to turn on one or two things. Now what's interesting is they're going to start breaking some of the Jetpack stuff back out. I don't know if you
Really?
yeah, exactly. See, I'm wondering if they're wrapping it into, they have something called performance and speed. This is, I'm looking, what I'm
That could
doing,
be,
folks,
yeah.
is I'm looking in the back end and I'm like, load pages faster. This is in the Jetpack settings under performance and speed. Load pages faster by allowing Jetpack to optimize your images and serve your images and static files like CSS
Yeah.
from our global servers. Enable site acceleration. I'm going to turn that off right now, if that's okay with you, Sherry.
Fine with me.
Okay, let's turn that off.
Oh, and then you want me to go back to that?
Yeah, and we'll see what kind of caching is done and see if that. So do a hard reload. Yeah. So sometimes when you have to be careful, everybody, when you're looking at a site that you're not calling things up from your local cache or the server cache.
This one's still going there, but it may take a little bit.
And like I'll do a Control Shift reset or Control Shift F5 to
Yeah,
try to make sure.
This is a hard reset. So where is this coming from? Oops, right there. No, it's still coming from
Still
there. But
there,
that could
so-
also be
Caching on right here, and I'm going to take a quick look to see if we have other caching set up. But I did turn off that service, and that also will mean that over time the caching will get changed. But I'm looking to see if you have any caching going on right now. Cache.
So it's funny, while he's doing that, again, in some, like I use SiteGround still for quite a few of my websites, and SiteGround also has some built-in speed optimization thing, and they have something similar to it. They'll use Cloudflare for their caching of images. So it's one of those, like, they make it sound like it's a great thing, like, oh, it'll speed up processing, which it can, but also, like we're saying, sometimes it's, it can add complications to things.
So we're looking at on the back end, it's W3 Total Cache is a plugin that's running.
Oh, now it's starting, maybe it's starting to clear. Like, I don't, maybe that setting needed to roll through there.
Yeah, and I emptied the cache. So
Okay, I think that might be it, Peter. So let me take a look again at the one I looked at. So there was this picture.
that one,
If I
yeah.
go up to open image. Yep, now it's back to normal. Now it's
Yeah,
coming
so
from
now
the-
what we've done is we turned off the Jetpack setting that says go and use the CDN. So now it's only coming out of local, and then we had to go in to, there's a caching plugin, caching to kind of make things go faster because it's keeping things in memory, and said empty the cache. Let's start with a fresh cache, meaning we're going to dish out fresh pages, not stored pages. And here we go. We have your content loaded now in its new clean, not cache form, and the image is coming from your website and not from the CDN.
Should we clear the cache every now and then?
I know I do.
If you're making changes, that's really.
Yeah, if you're changing your content,
What's the caching plugin that they're using?
it's W3 Total Cache.
Yeah, because some will have a setting on the caching plugin to say that if you change a file or if you update a post or a page or something, it will refresh that cache. So I'm not sure if that plugin has that or not.
Let me take a W3 total cache. I'm going to
I like
setting
caching a lot, but caching is one that burns people a lot too.
all the time.
Because it depends on how caching is set. So just again, you may have caching set locally. So again, the whole idea of caching is, in theory, it speeds up sites, especially a site that you may visit repeatedly. So that's one thing a lot of times that somebody will say, hey, I'm you may notice this yourself. You go to a site, you updated something on a site, you change the picture, you change some text, and you're like, I'm not seeing my changes. I would start with, first off, clear your browser cache, because your browser may actually be caching some files, especially images. That's the thing a browser typically will cache. So try clearing that by doing a hard refresh. So hard refresh isn't just refreshing your browser. It's I'm on a Mac, so I press the Shift key and then press that little arrow on Chrome. That'll clear everything out. Once that's done, then go to your website. Your website may have caching software there on the website. So a caching plugin, so you want to clear that cache, including minified files and all that kind of junk. But then your hosting may have some caching going on too. So, follow
Yeah,
the trail.
We don't ever go back and update posts. What we wrote, we wrote. If we make a mistake, we'll say something in a later post,
Yeah.
Got it.
but
Yeah.
we don't go back and, update things.
So in most cases, once something's there, you don't really need to clear. You don't need to
Yeah.
clear the cache then in that case.
Yeah, you're probably fine. The main thing is, as Ray was describing, is if you did do something and you're not seeing it for some reason when you go to look at your site, or somebody else, you made a change or you added something and someone else is not seeing it, that's when you might go into your cache settings, and all the settings are on one page in the cache software that you're using. And if you scroll down to the second section called page cache and just say empty cache,
Okay.
it's just a button. So, but yeah, it is generally a set it and forget it unless you run into an issue.
Okay. Okay.
And you can always disable caching plugins. You can also disable or deactivate it anytime you want. I mean, it's not a terrible thing to deactivate plugins like a caching plugin.
Super. Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome.
We got a
Of course,
couple.
we're going to help you, Sherry. You're from the beginning of our new
Yeah,
meetup
I've been
game.
around for a long time.
Long time. Exactly.
Mike,
As long as we have, I think.
Mike has a good question. Is there a good non-biased resource for finding good plugins for functionality that one hasn't dealt with before, aside from asking this group for their recommendations?
I was going to say, well, we're as non-biased as we can. You do have to be. Go ahead.
I was going to say, because it depends on what you're searching for. I've found that, I was searching for a plugin just recently. What was I looking for? A plugin that could do something really silly, like adding a search bar to a menu. And lo and behold, when I searched for those exact words, search bar to WordPress site, first one that came up was by the company that's selling the plugin. So, oh, look, ours is the best one. Or you search for best forms, WP Forms is going to come up because WP Beginner has a site with tons of blog stuff. So
yeah,
there's
I'm gonna yeah, this goes out, but
not-
WP Beginner, you have to be all the WP Beginners YouTube videos out there and the links on their blog posts, they all rank very high, but they're always promoting their own plugins. So yeah, you have to be careful. And I wish they were a little bit more transparent. In fact, I wrote to them and told them that. And didn't hear back, but that's okay.
I don't think there's not, unfortunately, there's not a single unbiased. I mean, the WordPress repository even has bias in it, I would say.
Yeah.
There's people there who just, you can still look at the Gutenberg plugin, it gets 1 star because there's some haters out there and they just love piling on. You're like, all right, who do I trust? So yeah, we have our private Facebook group where, again, we're not all experts in every plugin out there, but I'd say, ask around, you start to learn over time, I think, sources that are better than others.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. There's a few podcasts that I listen to that seem to be pretty, honest about their assessment of plugins. But in terms of like asking, I think doing the search, going into the repository, and then looking at how many downloads there have been,
Yeah,
looking at
David
the stars.
mentioned that in the chat too.
Yeah, okay. Looking at all of that. And then, with the free version, you try it and you see if it works. You're your own best, as long as there's nothing that are red flags on why you shouldn't even try it in the first place. If it's something that has, at least, a pretty decent user base, give it a try. That's it. But yeah, it's asking people that you end up and then trusting their opinions.
The thing I've learned too about the pro ones, before you spend any money on a pro plugin, see what their return policy is, or
Yeah.
like do they let you use it for 7 days for free? Is it just you buy it and then good luck, ever getting your money back from them? Because a lot of times too, they'll show you these great demos and things for these plugins. You try installing it, you're like, this looks nothing like what you showed me, and maybe it doesn't meet your needs. So that's, unfortunately, I think that's it. Some of them you just got to try them out a bit and see, do they work or not.
Yeah, I've looked at the repository, to start with, and it seemed pretty. Sometimes there's a lot of plugins, and a lot of them have a lot of stars.
Yeah, and those aren't always. Sometimes that's a good indicator of at least popularity. But going back to the thing we talked about, Jetpack has a tons of downloads because it's been around forever. I wouldn't recommend it for, it's not that it's a bad thing. I just wouldn't recommend it for most people because it's overkill. And even, but again, this is always, there's a gray area. There's certain plugins, if it's a very specialized thing, it may not have a lot of downloads, but it's still something that it meets the very need that you need for that website. It certainly could be useful for you. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think we're just about out of time. Thanks everyone for joining summer school when you didn't need to join.
Yeah.
3 sessions. 3 sessions of summer school. People came voluntarily.
Yeah, that's great. But for everybody, feel free to use the Facebook group if you're not big on Facebook. We do see any comments that are put up on meetup.com. And I think once we get back in the fall, I'm going to try to resurrect the hartfordwp.com. I started putting that site, and maybe just doing a simple, question and answer forum there. Because I know Facebook is not for everybody, and I get that 100%. So.
And Frank asked, what's next? Well, we're going to get back to topics. So just
what do you want?
If you want to peek behind the curtain, I mean, Peter and I generally don't plan these things too far in advance. Like literally, it's early in the month, we'll plan for that month's topic and come up with the slides and ideas. But that's where we definitely highly encourage you to give us some feedback on things you're interested in, problems you have. That helps us. That sparks things that we hear people talking about. We say that's a great topic to do. We're hoping to bring in some guest speakers throughout the year a little bit too, just because there's areas of expertise that I certainly don't have or Peter doesn't have, or just to hear a different voice. So like I said, we're actively going to start looking for those people. But if you attend something, a meetup or whatever, or another, presentation, say, hey, that's a good speaker, please let us know. We'd be happy to reach out to that person, see if they can partner up with us. So more to come. Again, thanks everyone for joining us tonight. And if you join us for other sessions, well, thank you, and hope to see you again next month at our meetup.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
one. Bye.